What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about my decision to join the U.S. Army. Um, basically, I've been working on cruise ships. I'm a drummer on cruise ships is my main job for the past few years since 2021, and they come in contracts. My job's usually 6 month contracts, and on my very first one, I met my girlfriend. And so we've been together since then. But having to go from ship to ship and do a bunch of different contracts, we've been together for almost 3 years now, and we haven't really got to spend that much time together. We have to do long distance, and we both have just kind of decided that we would like to try to be together if we can. And there's really not much consistent work on land. As a musician, you have to either make your own work via recording sessions or touring, that kind of thing, or you can go to a place like Las Vegas and see if you can get a gig there, or there's the Broadway scene in New York. But I set up some auditions. I sent in some auditions for some Vegas shows, and I didn't get the gigs. And so I was just thinking, how can I make this transition to land so me and my girlfriend can be together? And what I ultimately decided on doing, the U.S. military has bands. Each branch has a band that you can audition for if there's a spot open. And I looked into all the branches, and I saw that the U.S. Army had drum set spots open. So I set up an audition, and I passed the audition. And basically, it went super well, and I passed the audition. Then what I had to do was meet with recruiters. And get everything set up. You have to do the audition first, because if you just go talk to the recruiters, you can't become a musician just by talking to a recruiter. You have to make sure you pass the audition and set that up with the band people in the military. So anyway, passed the audition, met with recruiters, filled out a bunch of forms that you have to fill out when you enlist in the military. And unfortunately, I do have a college degree, but I can't go in as an officer. If you guys don't know, normally when you go into the military with a college degree, you would go to like officers school, and you'd become an officer, and you start out making more money. But that doesn't happen for musicians. You just have to enlist. You don't become an officer. So that kind of sucks, but it's okay. Anyway, got all the paperwork filled out. Then I had to go to MEPS. I don't even remember what MEPS stands for, something processing. But I'd meet with my recruiter at like 2 a.m. and we drove 4 hours to the MEPS station so we could be there at 6 a.m. in time. And I had to go through this whole medical process, which really wasn't that bad. They just checked me out and made sure I didn't have any medical problems that would prevent me from joining. I also had to take the ASVAB test. But yeah, I was there pretty much from 6 a.m. until I think 3 or 4 p.m. So a full day there, just because I tried to get I got everything done in one day. I know a lot of people take a couple days or more. But yeah, it was pretty funny in MEPS. The guys were kind of being dicks, which I heard is common. And there was this one scenario where we were all instructed, all of us that were going through the process were instructed to go into this room and take our socks and shoes off. We were supposed to go to the bench and take our socks and shoes off. And I got to the room, and the bench was already like full of people taking their socks and shoes off. So I was standing at the door, and I started taking my socks and shoes off at the door. And this guy looks at me and he's like, "Hey, follow instructions. They told you to go to the bench." And he was like super pissed off. And I couldn't help but laugh because I thought it was funny. Like, this guy, by the way, is like a civilian. He's not even a military member. And I'm also not a military member. So even if he was a guy in the military, he still technically can't boss me around. But I guess it's to get you in that whole mindset. But anyway, I started laughing because I just thought it was funny that this guy was being such a dick. And then he got me after that. He was like, "Oh, is something funny?" And I'm laughing when I said that, but he's like, "Is something funny?" And I was like, "No, no, nothing's funny." So I wiggled my way into the bench, made some room on the bench, and took my socks and shoes off. And then the funny thing is, the guy that came in right after me, he did the exact same thing, and he got the same little spiel that I got, which I thought was funny. But yeah, overall, it was a pretty easy process. We also had to go through this room where they just explained a bunch of stuff to us about being in the military, and I was surprised about how long they spent explaining that you can't be involved in any extremist groups. I guess it makes sense. I was in a pretty conservative area. I'm guessing they probably had like a lot of like, I don't know, Proud Boys or maybe QAnon type guys uh, enlisting, and they just want to make it very clear that you cannot be involved in any extremist groups and be a part of the military. And then they also spent a lot of time talking about like racism and discrimination and how that's not tolerated in the military. Obviously, because you're fighting alongside these people, you can't be racist against them or whatever the justification is. Makes sense. You can't hold any prejudices towards your fellow brothers in arms. But I just thought, I was like, man, interesting. I didn't expect them. It was like 10 minutes on each of those. 10 minutes talking about extremist groups, 10 minutes talking about no discrimination. And what else was interesting about it? Yeah, I mean, pretty much just having doctors check you out, taking your clothes on and off, getting measured, getting your height measured, getting your weight taken. And then when it came time for me to sign my contract, this was actually the interesting part. I had told my recruiters that I wanted to start in July, and I got to the part where I signed my contract, where you're officially enlisting in the Army, and the contract said I was supposed to start on April 1st when I wanted to start on July 1st. And I was like, oh man, I can't sign this. I wanted to start in July, not in April. And this guy was like, oh man, we can't do that. You have to start in April. And I told him, oh, well, that's fine. I guess I'll just not sign anything, and I'll re-audition later and enlist later if I can't switch to July. And he was like pretty irritated. And he's like, oh, I'll make a call. I'll see what I can do. And I guess being a musician is like a kind of a specialized unit, so it doesn't really work the same way as other units, I guess. And anyway, he called this woman who was super chill, and she was, I guess, a person who makes decisions about the band. And she told him that, oh yeah, he can ship out whenever he wants. We can switch him to the July 1st date. I'll send over a contract right away. So this guy, like, he made it seem like, oh, you're gonna have to sign right now and go in April, and I just like wasn't buying it. I didn't even care if I would have to re-audition or any of that. I wasn't gonna go in April because I wanted to go in July, and he made it sound like it was gonna be impossible. And then after he got off the phone, he was like, oh, you're really lucky, man. I don't think I was that lucky. I think he was just trying to get me to sign because he didn't want to have to do any extra work. I don't know. That was my impression. But anyway, it worked out fine. I got the dates I wanted. The other thing that was interesting was when I originally auditioned to get in, the band people had told me, oh, you can, the guy that auditioned me, I'm 100% sure he said this. He's like, yeah, you get to pick your top 3 bases that you want to go to, and if there's a spot open in those bases, we'll send you there. And so I was just like, okay, that sounds great, because there's a base in my state pretty close to where I live, where all my friends live. And I reached out after I did my audition to some of the band members at this base, Fort Lewis McChord in Washington, and they had said, oh yeah, we need drummers. There's a couple drum spots open. And I was like, all right, perfect. I'll be able to go to Fort Lewis McChord. But then after I went through this whole process at MEPS, as soon as I was done and signed my enlistment form and swore the oath and everything, I got a text from the guy that auditioned me. And he was like, yeah, congrats, man. I'm so happy you got your enlistment done. And then he sends me a text saying, here's the 3 bases you can pick from. and it's like Fort Riley, Fort Sill, and Fort Cavazos. One of those is in Kansas, one of those is in Oklahoma, and Fort Cavazos is in Texas. And I was like, hold on a second, man. You said I would get to pick, and I know there's spots open in Fort Lewis McChord. And so I had a phone call with him, and I guess there's just nothing they could do about it. There's actually nothing that could be done about this one because, I tried to make sure if there was spots open, I could go to Fort Lewis McChord. But I guess that's not how it works. And so anyway, I picked I haven't gotten any confirmation of where I'm going, but I said I'd rather, out of those three that they gave me, I'd want to go to Fort Cavazos, Texas. So maybe I'll be going there. But yeah, so that whole process was just interesting. I don't know if anyone watching this is in the military, but I would like to hear some of your guys' experiences with that. But anyways, yeah, it'll just be good. I'll get to keep playing music for a living. I won't have to be away from my family all the time. Although cruise ships were pretty fun. I've been to like a bunch of different countries, like 11 or 12, and just been traveling the world. But it does get kind of lonely when you have to be away from your family and your girlfriend. And so ultimately, I think this is good. Plus, the contract work that you get on cruise ships, you only get insurance coverage while you're on the ship. So like in between your contracts, if you were to get hurt, you'd be on your own for insurance. Or if you had to get dental work, anything like that, you're on your own. That was fine because I'm on my dad's insurance through his work. But I'm about to turn 26, so I drop off his insurance. So, yeah, I guess I'll get insurance with the military. So there's that benefit. Plus, I get the GI Bill. I already have a degree and I don't have any loans. But if I want to go back to school, I can use the GI Bill. I think it's up to $80,000 or something. So I could get a master's, or I could just get a bachelor's degree in something completely different. And they also have active duty tuition assistance. So while I'm in the military, I can study. So I could take like online classes. I think it's up to $4,000 a year. So if I did like an online school like WGU, I could get a new degree pretty affordably if I wanted to do that, which I might take advantage of that because it's always good to have new skills. Some of the other benefits, you get the VA loan, which is a loan where you don't have to make a down payment and you don't have to pay any PMI, any of the mortgage insurance. So yeah, there's a lot of good benefits to being a veteran, and I still get to keep playing drums. So I'm happy with that decision. And honestly, it got me thinking. I know a lot of people would never join the military, but yeah, I just think sometimes in life you have to make hard decisions to end up making your life easier. And I know that there's probably going to be points like I have to go to boot camp in July. That might suck. It probably will suck. And but you go through this tough stuff, and then if I don't like it or whatever, it's just 3 years and 22-week enlistment. So 3.5-year enlistment. I go through 3.5 weeks of still just playing music as my main job. And then I get to reap all the benefits, like the GI Bill, the VA loan, like I just talked about. And so basically, you make a hard decision now, and then your life gets easier later. I think that's a very good lesson that people can take away from this whole video, I guess, is that oftentimes that there is a situation like that you could choose. That there's something you could do right now that would ultimately make your life easier later on. And I think it's a good idea to just start taking advantage of those types of things. Because if you just keep taking the easiest decision you can possibly take, ultimately it's going to make your life harder later on. I know plenty of guys that are like, in their 50s and they don't have a house of their own, they don't have a wife, they don't have kids, and it's kind of because they were never willing to sacrifice anything. They were never willing to take the hard route. So whatever that looks like for you guys, I would probably say my biggest piece of advice. Well, we'll see if I change my tune after the military, but I would say don't be afraid to take the hard route if you know it's going to make your life easier in the long run. And yeah, that's pretty much it.